now, unfortunately, we do not have a video camera. I was hoping we would, but I wasn't able to get one this morning. So what I'll have happen is I'm going to have a couple students come up and talk to you about your plants. They're doing well. They're big.
Good.
And we'll have some of my students at the end. I'll have them just come up and wave. How's that? Because they all want to wave.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
Now, let me just, ladies and gentlemen, please. All right. Now, let me just tell you a couple of things, and then I'm going to have Sierra Miller and Kate Cunningham come up and talk to you a little bit about the plants and show you. They've been in our greenhouse, and you guys brought them over, and they're watered usually about once every 3 days.
Okay.
I think one of the things that we found this season was because it hasn't been as warm and it hasn't been as sunny, that the tomatoes are taking longer to grow. Okay. They're growing, but you're going to see there's a little bit of a difference. They haven't grown a lot. The peppers, on the other hand, though, are growing really, really well. Okay? So we'll show you both of those. And then they are getting picked up tomorrow, just like your other plants did, and they will be going over to John Rudy Park to go into the garden there.
That sounds great. How did the cabbage and the broccoli and the cauliflower do?
All of those did really well.
Good.
No problems at all. I think we only lost 2 or 3 plants total. Size-wise, they did real well because it was cool.
Okay.
We didn't run into the same issue that we have with the tomatoes. And I think what will happen with the tomatoes is when it gets warmer, they'll start to grow much better.
Okay.
Okay?
Yes.
So would you like me to have the 2 students come up?
We would love for that to happen.
Okay. Come on, ladies. And I'm going to kind of move out of the picture now, have them come up, and they can tell you about the plants. Then we'll be glad to take questions.
Perfect.
Okay. All right.
Good morning.
Good morning. There we go. Okay, here we go first. Okay, well, I'm doing your peppers, and 37 peppers have grown. There's 2 of them.
Wow.
Getting pretty big. And Sierra, you can do that. We checked on tomatoes, and there was 58 tomatoes growing. They're not quite as big, but they are growing.
Okay.
There are only 2 plants that aren't growing out of all of them, so they're doing pretty good. Does anyone have any questions?
Okay, does anybody here have any questions? Nathan, do you want to come on over? Okay, this is Nathan. Let's see. We'll get him.
Oh, no, I forgot it.
He forgot it. Does anybody else have any questions? No, you said that you water them 2 or 3 times a week, correct?
Yes.
Okay, is there anything else that you had to do for them?
We had to add fertilizer.
Okay.
And Mrs. Musone, can you hear me in the background?
Absolutely.
Okay, we had to add, and you have to do, because they were such small seedlings, you have to add fertilizer at just half strength, because otherwise you'll burn the roots and potentially the plant. So that's what we had to do.
Okay. So it's kind of like, guys, whenever you get medicine, you know how you get like children's Tylenol or children's cold and flu medication, it's not as strong. So that's they're like little kid plants, so they have to not get fertilizer that's as strong as what you would give a grown-up plant. Okay. Eli, do you have a question? Okay. This is Eli.
Hi, Eli.
Hi.
Why would they get burned with fertilizer?
That's a great question. Fertilizer has chemicals in it, okay? So you have to be careful how much of the chemical you put on a little tiny baby plant, because they just can't handle it. Just like Mrs. Musone said, they're very, very small and they're growing, so they're real delicate, okay? So you have to just be careful because of those chemicals. They can actually, now it doesn't burn like what you're thinking of as a burn, I think. But what will happen is it'll make the roots kind of fall off, and the stem will start getting very weak, and the plant can fall over if you give it too much fertilizer. So that's what I mean by the word burn.
I'm glad that you clarified that, because I think that we had maybe a different picture in our heads. Catherine has a question for you, and she's coming around. Okay. There you are.
Is there any little baby peppers growing?
There are. The hot peppers that are growing are smaller for the most part, although Kate has one that she's holding right now, which is one of the larger of the hot peppers. They tend to be smaller overall. I would say they're probably about 1.5 inches high right now, up to 2 inches.
Does anybody else have a question? Nathan, did you remember your question? Okay, this is Nathan now. He remembers. Wait, let me. There you are, buddy. Gotcha.
Why do you give it so less water?
Oh.
That's a great question also. Again, if you give them too much water, they won't, I don't want to use the word drowned because I think you picture that a different way, but what will happen again is the plant won't get as strong as it should. The roots won't develop as much as they should, and the stem, just like if you give it too much fertilizer, the stem will get weak and it'll kind of fall over. So you have to be careful that they're completely dried out in between waterings so that to the touch, if you touch the top of the soil, it's nice and dry, and that's when you give it more water. And I think last year, I know you guys weren't with Mrs. Musone last year, they needed more water more frequently because it was hotter and more sunny out.
Okay. So that was a change from what we had because we'd always had the water on the bottom, and so they were kind of continually getting what they needed. But once they get a little bit bigger, that's not good. And even I think whenever we have them, you can't overwater them. Is that correct, Mrs. Hughes?
You're absolutely correct. And I think that's a mistake that a lot of us make. You think, oh, it needs more, it needs more, it needs more, because you don't want it to dry out. Yep. But you have to let it dry out a bit in between waterings because otherwise you can give it too much water, and that can be just as bad.
Okay. That was helpful. Any other questions? No? Now, does your class know where they're going next?
Pardon me?
Does your class know the process of where they go when Mr. Cook comes to get them?
What do you mean as far as going to the garden?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Yep, so it's really nice because everybody here has helped feed people in York because eventually those things will be harvested and given to the food bank.
Absolutely. And that's a huge piece. That's a huge community service project.
Yes.
And Mrs. Musone, have you ever gone out to John Rudy in August when they're harvesting?
I was on vacation this last year, but I've gone out to weed a few times.
Okay, because it's amazing. It's amazing the harvest that they're able to bring in towards like mid-August.
Right. Now, do you volunteer there too, Mrs. Hughes? Do you go?
I'm not necessarily at John Rudy Park. I'm a master gardener, just like Mr. Cook.
Mm-hmm.
So I do different projects with gardening.
Okay, very good. Yes, and there is a tomato testing in August. I think it's the first Saturday. I'll get the date for Mr. Cook and I'll share it with you. So you can actually go and you can sample the things that you help to grow. So they do that for the community.
That's great. Because then you really know.
Yes.
You really know how worthwhile the whole project is.
Yes. We appreciate you Skyping with us and showing us what these plants look like.
Absolutely.
What
I'm going to do, Mrs. Musone, is I'm going to take some pictures today. So one thing I don't think your students have seen is you saw close-ups, but I don't think you saw the whole setup of the greenhouse.
No.
So I'm going to take some pictures, and then I'll send them over to you so you can share that with the students because they've not been over here, so they haven't gotten a chance to see the whole setup.
Okay, that would be perfect.
Okay?
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay.
And now my students here would like to at least maybe come up behind our two here. And
Yes.
give a little wave and a hello. Is that okay?
That would be wonderful.
All right, come on up.
Okay, now we want to look at them too because we're going to be seeing some different students. Hi there. Good morning. Good morning. Hi. Good morning. Hi. Good morning. Good morning. Thank you very much. Bye.